Mountain biking is an inherently dangerous sport, and if you haven't accepted it already, you should. You are going to get hurt every now and then. We all know that. But I do think we would be remiss if we didn't at least learn a lesson from each of these accidents that we have. And I am nursing an injury this week, and I thought it'd be a great time to go back, take a look at some of my mountain bike injuries and what I've learned from them. And to help me with this storytelling time, I've got my buddy Joe, aka Mr. Tonka, here to share some of his stories that I hadn't heard. So yeah, why don't you kick us off, man? What's one injury or one crash and lesson you've learned?
The crash and the lesson. It's probably my biggest one. I was in Gainesville with a couple of buddies. We were on this big hill. It's like this 30-foot tall hill with a steep roll, and about 10 or 15 foot into it, it levels out for about maybe a 3-foot ledge and then drops off into a steep transition. And I was running up to it maybe like 50, 60 times. I remember Seth telling you in that video, don't run
too
up
many
to
times.
And I finally did it and landed it, everything. And my buddies didn't see me because they got tired of waiting for me. And I was like,
And if they didn't see, then it didn't happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what they told me. And so I was like, if I did it once, I'll do it again. And I did it again, and I somehow came off the bike, like at the middle part. I came off and landed like flat on my face. I almost impaled myself on the bars, and I landed with a root right across the top of my femur. And I thought I broke my femur. I thought it was just toast. And turns out it wasn't. At the end of the day, injury healed up. But the worst part about it is what I learned.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, what was the lesson?
What I learned was to be scared of steep rolls and drops.
Yeah, that's not a lesson you want to learn.
That is not a lesson you want to learn.
You know what I would take away from that is that it's like my dad used to tell me roller coasters are not scary at all the first time because you don't know what to expect. But the second time you go get in line, it's like you already know what's coming. You know it's terrifying, and you know you're about to do it again. So it can be even scarier the second time. Sometimes you can have beginner's luck.
Yeah, that one's plagued me all of my mountain biking life, and I'm just now starting to get over it. And you've helped me a lot with that. Gentle encouragement.
So my first one that I want to start with was also my worst one. Worst. Yeah, it was right when I was getting into mountain biking. I was following my little brother, who also was getting into mountain biking. It was my first time riding in North Carolina. I was on a loaner bike. There was like all the stars aligned. It was perfect. It's the first time at this trail I've never ridden before on a loaner bike that was a POS, and it just straight up wasn't working. And I was following my little brother without any knowledge of the trail, and I was pretty new to mountain biking. So anyway, went down to G out up this thing, and before I knew it, I was in the air. I didn't know I was hitting a jump. I bailed off my bike. I landed and boom, tore my ACL. Like, I was just about to head back to soccer season, and I had to call my coach and tell him I had done this thing mountain biking.
He's like, and how did you do it?
Yeah.
Doing what?
So I've got a metal pin right here in my knee, and I've got like 3 arthroscopic holes. I tore my ACL and meniscus. It took me a year to get it back on the bike, and the only lesson that I learned from it, because I really didn't learn much once looking back, the only lesson I really learned is that I love mountain biking and I want to keep doing it.
That's a good lesson.
It doesn't make any sense, but that was one of my very first mountain bike experiences, and I was hooked. It took me a year to recover from this injury, and I immediately started riding again. I never claimed to be smart. Okay. Oh, I got a good one. So, also when I was getting new to mountain biking, I made the classic mistake of wanting, I was trying to progress too fast. And that's what this crash is about. I went out to ride alone with the intent of hitting the biggest drop that I've ever hit. Mistake number 1 right there. Going alone to hit the biggest thing I've ever hit. That's dumb. Always go with a friend. So I went to this place called Big Creek in Atlanta. And there's this back of the hill that is designated to making downhill runs. And there's some pretty fun stuff. There's even bigger stuff now than when I was riding. But there was this considerable drop. And I worked my way up to it, really just by running into it, though. The problem is that I hadn't done enough jumps leading into this jump, because my grave miscalculation was my speed And I looked at the base of the drop. It was like 7 feet. But what I didn't realize is that I was going to come in like this fast, and I was going to project outwards, which means when I got outwards, it was going to be more like a 13-foot gap drop. So
7,
anyway,
13, same thing.
yeah, I hit it too fast. I hit it too big of a gap or a drop, and I didn't even have good form. So I was sailing off my bike before I knew it, and I bailed off the bike, and I just landed on my arm and ribs. I just remember landing really hard. So anyway, broke my radius, actually this side, the tip of my radius, and I cracked a number of ribs on my side. Of course, that's all conjecture because I actually didn't go see a doctor until a little later about my arm. But I'd say the lessons that I learned were mainly about progression and that you don't actually have to just go get injured to progress in mountain biking. You can do it safely and steadily until, baby steps. You don't need to go from this to this. And I think that's a really important lesson that not a lot of beginners get.
I agree.
Yeah. Because, and I very much now believe in overtraining. You think you're ready to progress to the next level. Well, you need to you think you can hit the next level, the next big jump. Stay on this one and just be able to do all the easiest things possible on that one. Like we talked about at Santos, before you even think about going to this next one. Like there's no reason to go injure yourself. All right, your turn.
I got a couple of ones that are just those stupid idiot mistakes.
Oh, perfect. I got one of those.
They're all about wheeling over backwards. And
looping out?
Yeah.
Okay. Were you flipped?
On one of them I was.
Okay.
And the first time it happened, I was building that bike, by the way, and I had taken like 4 months to build it, so I had it all apart. And so I go to put everything back, and I'm like, is the right side the rear or the left side the rear? And I started thinking about my motorcycles, and I'm like, well, this side's the front on my motorcycle, so they'll put the front one over here and the rear one over here. And the inaugural ride for that bike, I go out, and I'm like, man, this bike wheelie's so good, and I'm wheeling and going and going.
Joe can wheelie very well, though.
And I may be like 50, 60 feet, but I'm going faster and faster and faster, and then I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to set it down, and I'm going to lean back because I don't want it to slam down. So I lean back and go to hit the brake.
You're like, where is it?
Nothing happened. Actually, something happened. I landed on my ass. The other one, I was standing up wheeling and learned, from what I learned on that one was to put your brakes on the right place.
Yeah.
The other one is standing up wheeling.
Righty rear.
Yeah,
right side rear.
Righty rear.
That's what I remember. That's what I would teach kids.
Right in there. And the other one was standing up with clipless pedals, and that's when I learned that when you're standing up, they don't unclip as easily.
Right, because you've got downward pressure.
When you got weight on them, they don't unclip very easily.
Yeah.
So I went over standing on that one in the middle of the street. People in cars were coming up. Just leave me. I'm good. Just leave me here.
Okay, I got one to make you feel better. I gouged the left side of my leg. And I tore up my ankle. Like I had a big chunk of just skin. I have a scar on the left side of my thigh, and I was coming back from a group ride at this place that I worked called the NOC. I worked at the bike shop, and I led a group ride every Wednesday for all the employees that wanted to try out mountain biking. So we went out and we had a phenomenal ride. Just crushed these trails, just slaying it. It was awesome. And we get back and we're like ready for beers. It's like evening time. And we're rolling into the parking lot, and I'm just being an idiot, doing parking lot shenanigans. Really, if I'm being honest, I think I was kind of trying to show off. I think I was trying to show off, if I'm, to call myself out a little bit. And so, sure enough, I tried to do I don't even remember what I was trying to do, but I just go. I went down hard, and it's gravel. It was a big gravel parking lot, and the bar is on site. It was right there, so there was all these people, all my coworkers right there, and then a bunch of them were right here that I was riding with, and I just ached. And it was really bad. And so everyone was laughing. I just stood up and I was like, I bowed. You're welcome. Have a laugh on me.
And then limped off.
So so I think the lesson that I learned from that, first off, is don't ever try to show off. It's not becoming, and normally you get bad karma. Second, I learned that most of the time, just biking is just like driving. 90% of the crashes happen in the parking lot where you don't expect it. So you got to be careful of parking lot shenanigans because they can be just as dangerous as out on the actual trail. I think that's my takeaway. Yeah, you got another one?
Yeah, I was. I think my lesson to learn on this one is to know when you're fatigued, which is a big one. And us as guys, we don't want to be fatigued,
yeah.
and we want to go hard and all day and not worry about holding back. And I went to Santos one time, and I had two goals, one of which I didn't meet because the ramps were wet and it would have been bad. And the other was to go over that rainbow bridge that you nose wheelied over. And I wanted to get big air. And I saw Phil do it on one of his videos. And I wanted to basically launch over the whole thing and land on the downside and with big air. So I was out there for 2 hours or maybe even 3 hours. And I finally hit it. So I was super stoked.
That's a good session.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun on the beginner jump line. I did that for a while and then went to the rainbow bridge and ended up doing it, and I was super stoked. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna leave, but I was just in such a good mood. I was like trying to jump around on the bike.
One last time.
Well, and and honestly, I had in my mindset, I just did something that Phil did. I'm like, yeah, and I just hit this stupid washed out section of trail, and because it was in the middle of summer at Santos, and so there's no upkeep, and I could have gone to the left, I could have gone to the right. I could have bunny hopped it. I could have done something, but I just went straight in. I stuck my front tire right in it, and it flipped me over the bars. And it's all jagged limestone, so I landed directly on my shoulder, which had a bruise for like a month. Like it was hard to lift my shoulder up because it was bruised so much. And scratches all over my back. I haven't had gloves on. I had like a big chunk taken out. You can see the scar a little bit.
I can.
Big chunk taken out of it, and so yeah, that one was like.
What was the lesson again?
Know when you're fatigued.
Know when you're fatigued, yeah.
And
that's important. I also think another one is no last lap. That's another lesson I would say from that. It's like
goes hand in hand for sure.
Don't ever do one more.
Yeah, and don't
always two more. Skip the last.
Yeah, don't ride out like you're king of the mountain and you're just gonna blast out of everything when you're headed to the car. Just chill out. But stay focused.
Yeah. Never can have a lapse in judgment or a lapse in focus. Mountain biking will push you on your knees like that. Aha! Okay, so this one is one that people on the channel have seen. This is my crash in Grand Junction at the Ribbon, where I followed some people off of an alternate line, which was like a crazy hairy line. You guys have all seen this. And I had one of the worst crashes of my life. It wasn't the worst injury, but it was the one that could have been the most severe. I basically fell off of a rock cliff, and I landed on my head. I cracked my helmet. I damaged my shoulder, and I jacked up my neck, and I also lost most of my two front teeth. So now I have two fake front teeth because of this crash. And the reason what I trace this mistake back to is the classic, you need to be aware of who you're following down blind trails. Very, very, very important lesson. When you are riding a trail for the first time, it's very easy to get really excited and stoked on going to do this cool thing that you haven't done. But it can also be very dangerous. So, I've talked about it plenty in my videos that you need to go down trail and scout when you see big features. And the mistake I made here was I trusted these people that I had just met. And it is not their fault, it's my fault. Because there is always going to be a different level of understanding. You don't know anyone's background riding. You don't know how good they are or how different of trails you guys have ridden. You don't know if jumping is really easy to them, but drops are really scary to them, stuff like that. Everyone has their own personal preferences. So the only way to be really safe about something is go look at yourself. I did not do that. I followed these guys right off of this line without much thought at all to it, and I paid the price. And it's a very valuable lesson to have. Hopefully not everyone needs to learn this the hard way. But yeah, I sure did.
Yeah, my wife learned a similar lesson. she didn't learn that from it, but she had a similar experience with following me down that. There's a little section at North Creek where we've ridden recently.
Yep. At Alpha.
And I went down it, and this was before they made it all nice, and it was really stepped down in roots and washed away, and lots of places for your front tire to get stuck into. And I went down it, and I was like, whoa, that's pretty rowdy. I should tell her to walk it. And I stopped to turn around to tell her to walk it, and she was already in the air. And it was steep, so going OTV turned into going OTV and falling about 8 feet.
Right.
And so she broke her collarbone. She's got some titanium hardware and a bunch of screws. And unfortunately, because I wasn't very adept at mountain biking at the time, I didn't have any technique. I just was riding off of my childhood experiences.
Right.
I didn't have any great advice to tell her, this is why this happened, or this is why you should have done. And so she's basically just kind of shied away from mountain biking.
That's when
road biking.
When I make videos of me riding with people, that's why I'm so careful with people.
Yeah.
Because I've been on both sides of that equation, and it's so much better to just be like overly cautious and give them a fair heads up. Because I've learned from doing mountain bike guiding with kids, adults, new riders, and old riders that there's never a perfect understanding of skill level, first of all. So you can't just assume someone can do something, that you get them hurt that way. And then B, you can't just assume that you have to try to put yourself in the mindset of everyone. Because something as simple as riding on single track, like a bench cut single track with steep land to the right of you, that scares a lot of people.
Oh yeah. And
people that ride all the time like you and me, we don't think about that anymore, but you get with someone that's newer, that can scare them. So you have to be, I like to be aware of that and be over, because I don't want someone getting hurt because of my indiscretion.
You can tell that you're mindful of that.
Yeah.
You made mention of that I was getting better and better every time we rode, and I was trying to put my finger on it, because it's not like you imparted skill to me, but you gave me, one, the right kind of encouragement, and two, you pointed out things that you could apparently tell were on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like in some things you were like, that's the worst thing that can happen from what you're trying to do. And I'm like, oh yeah, that is the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it like that. I was just worried about the worst thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, oh, it all clicked and go together. So you can tell that you're pretty mindful of that.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you noticing that. I try to think about those things. But yeah, it's a whole different dynamic when group riding, and I've done a decent amount of it. So, okay, I got another good one, and this one also happened at NOC, and it left a very lasting. I have very big scars down my shin from this one. It's the biggest shinner of my life. I posted it on my Instagram, actually, and I think some people will have seen it, but I didn't tell the story of it. So, long story short, I was trying out a BMX bike for the first time. It was my buddy David's, and he had taken off the pins off of one of the pedals to do pedal grinds, and I didn't know that. So I was jumping around. I knew that I was on the side with the pins. I bunny hopped at one point. I flipped to the side with no pins. Then I went to bunny hop, and I was on the no pin side, and my foot slipped right off, and it came around, just dragged down my whole shin, gave me a ridiculous shinner. And the only thing that I learned from this is that every time I get on a BMX bike, I will get hurt. That is it. If you get on a BMX bike, be ready to get injured. It's always going to happen. So, you've been warned. Okay, the next one of mine is also another really well-publicized one. It's my shoulder dislocation. I'm pretty sure everyone that's on the channel knows I dislocated my shoulder last year in Arkansas. Seth popped it back in for me while we were out on the trail. It's been pretty well documented. But it was what I didn't talk about much ever really was that the way I popped it was on a very small little rock ledge feature that we were just playing around on. And that one injury took me a whole year to recover from. And so, I think about it quite a bit. I do. And what I have learned from that, the lesson I have learned is something we've already said, is that mountain biking requires your utmost attention and focus. And the second you are not giving in that, it'll humble you. So when you're out on your bike, you need to stay focused. whether you are doing a 30-foot gap jump or a simple little rock spline like this was, you have to be paying attention, because this is the other thing I learned, is that you can get hurt doing the simplest things.
Oh, you usually do.
Yeah, and it's a lot of those innocuous little things that get you because you treat it like that. So, you have to be careful on a mountain bike, whether you're doing something big or small, they can all put you on your ass. And this one did, and it did for a year. So, you got any more ones? Because I got a couple more. You tapped?
A little bit.
Oh, okay. All right, so I've got two more I'll finish up with. And the next one is when I re-injured my shoulder while on the Key West trip. I was in the midst of recovering from my shoulder dislocation, went on the road with Seth to do the Key West road bikepacking trip. Terrible idea. Anyway, and I fell on my shoulder. And I knew this was a possibility, and it sucked because I was actually pretty close to recovering, but this one crash, and I don't think I've actually made this explicit on the channel, this crash put me way behind. It put me 4 more months of recovery. Because before that happened, I was very, very close to being right there.
I'm just so mad.
So, I think it's a good lesson. What I learned is that you got to be careful when recovering from an injury and not come back too soon. Because oftentimes you can have a relapse or you can re-injure it and make it even worse like I did. So, it would have been much better had I just waited a month more before actually getting back on the bike or putting myself in a situation where that could happen again. Mm-hmm. And then I would have saved myself, 3 or 4 months, whatever more I added on, because I definitely made it worse by doing that. So, I think I've learned this lesson through more injuries than just this one, but you got to make sure you are very, very ready to come back. It's better to be conservative on that, both for the physical standpoint, but also for the mental, because if you're not 100% positive and confident in your abilities, then you're more liable to have another crash anyway. The final one that I have, man, is that I broke my pinky in Colorado this year. And I broke it on this trail that had a very technical, difficult climb. And I was sessioning this climb, which sounds weird, I know, sessioning the climb. But I was sessioning the climb, and I fell off. For the first time in such a long time, I fell off on the mountainside, like the downhill side. Not a good idea. And I couldn't catch myself. So anyway, I was grappling at the mountain, and I was reaching, grabbing loose rock. I just kept sliding. I felt like I couldn't stop myself. It was so weird. Anyway, when the dust settled, turned out I'd really jacked my pinky up because I had grabbed, I'd reached for something and it just caught my pinky and pulled it away. And basically, I learned that you can fall up as well. You don't always have to just fall down. It's weird.
You fall up?
Yeah, I fell up. I was going up.
Oh yeah, you fell going up.
Yeah. It's not only the downhills you have to look out for, the uphills that get you too. Yeah. You can fall up, you can fall down, you can fall any which way you can imagine on a mountain bike. It's all possible. Do you have any non-mountain bike related strange injuries you've ever had?
Skateboarding.
Oh yeah, I bet you do.
Relating to you hear that pop?
Yeah. Ooh, wow, that's crunchy. What'd you do to your knee?
I don't know how to. I bent it this way, like that, twice in a row. And so I went to go do a 360 over the mogul, and I did, but I landed like I was going to land on flat.
Ooh.
And landed on the backside. So all my weight was back, and my foot caught the concrete, and my board went forward, and my knee buckled in, and it was kind of tender. I went out, I walked it off for about 15 minutes, and then my mentality is, all right, I'm hitting that mogul right now.
Yeah.
And did the same exact thing.
I almost lost this eye one time. Yeah, I don't know if you can see. I have a part of my eyebrow is missing right here.
Sort of Red Ryder BB gun?
Right there. No, it was not. I walked by a wooden pole that had a nail just sticking out of it, right at eye level, and luckily it hit me it's right there. I just walked. It was like something came out of thin air because I was just walking. All of a sudden I was like, oh. So yeah, almost lost my left eye on a nail. Also, I broke my big toe when I was in high school, jumping rope on my hands.
That does not compute.
I was really bored in PE class, and my buddy and I thought I could. I was like, I can handstand pretty well. I bet I can jump rope. So I did, and I came down just awkwardly, and I smacked my toe on concrete.
Like when you're coming down.
Broke my big toe. Yeah, and I was like, oh crap, I think I just broke my big toe. And I was the captain of the soccer team, and like the finals, the state finals were like that weekend. I still played.
So you had to call your coach twice.
No, I walked up to my coach that time.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But he saw me coming from a while away with a surgical boot, and he shook his head.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, so that was probably my weirdest injury. Actually, that was a strange one. I can't think of any other super weird one. Oh, I broke my first injury ever. I broke my index finger playing dodgeball. I caught this kid. It was down to me and one other kid. No joke. I remember this. This was second grade. We were head to head, and he had the dodgeball, and I didn't. And he launched it right at me, and I caught it. But it broke.
Big expense of your finger.
Oh yeah, it broke my finger so bad. But I caught it, and I won the game. And the next day, I had a cast on. All right, well, that's all the injuries that I've got, like mountain bike related at least. I have tons of other ones. Like I do actually have more, but they're just not mountain bike related. I've torn my ACL in my meniscus in my right knee and my meniscus in my left. I've had surgery on both. Like, yeah, I've done it. I've put my body through the ring for sure. But I think that covers all of my mountain bike related. How about you?
Yeah, definitely. Other than the stupid stuff, like tires washing out and you getting some strawberries.
Yeah. I mean, we got those. There's endless stories of those. But it's an inevitability of mountain biking, I think. And so I also like to think about what I can learn from it. If me and Joe have helped anyone that's new to the channel, or anyone that's new to mountain biking, or maybe you just haven't been fortunate enough to have your first really bad crash, if we've been able to instill some sort of knowledge upon you today, well, then we've done our job. And if you guys have not been able to escape that, if you have a mountain bike related injury and a lesson that you've learned, we'd love to hear about it down in the comments. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to give us a thumbs up. If you can relate to the broken not buried sentiment of being off of the bike but getting back at it, I will put a link for this shirt that you can get and help support the channel down in the description below. If not, we will see you guys again on Thursday, and you know what to do. Until then, live free, ride hard, and get stoked.